Welcome to another episode of the Creative Resistance Podcast. I'm Scott Cassidy, and each week sees me chat to guests who are using their creativity to shine a light on the things that matter. This week, I'll be chatting to the awesome Kirsty Mulcahy, founder of SoberBuzz Scotland and SkyRose Coaching, as she tells the tale of her journey to sobriety, and we discuss killer cultural norms, shifting attitudes and sources of much needed support. I've lost an immediate family member to alcoholism, and just over 2 years ago made the decision to stop drinking after one too many messed up nights. This episode is an important one to me. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and there's a full bio for Kirsty and contact details, including sources of support, in the show notes. Hello, and a very warm welcome to Kirsty Mulcahy. How are you, pal?
I'm good. Well, spinning plates, as we sort of mentioned before we started recording this. But on the whole, I'm really good. I actually shared yesterday on my social media that, I'm a person of, like everybody, of many parts. So it's just reminding myself there's many parts to what's going on in my life. And looking after myself, I'm dealing with a poorly family member. But yeah, all those tools that I learned when I got sober almost 8 years ago are coming into play now for sure.
Definitely. I think that's really interesting. That's a seamless segue into the first thing I wanted to chat about. You said there about you shared yesterday, and I think you've been very happy to be open about sharing your journey with sobriety. And I don't know anyone else in that kind of social media sphere that I've seen anyway that's taken their own story and used it as creatively as you have to help others and to carve out multiple businesses and CICs. Would you mind just starting us off by just sharing a little bit about your story, just your tale?
Yeah, of course. The reason I do what I do, first of all, is because I couldn't find anybody that I could relate to. I was really struggling when I got sober to find something that I saw as empowering, because before I stopped drinking, which was in 2017, I stopped drinking, I truly believed that being alcohol-free, being drug-free, I'd done a lot of recreational drugs, would mean that my life would be over. It would be so sad. It would be, like poor Kirsty, she just can't go out anymore. She can't do anything. And initially it was like that because I was very, very ill, Scott, when I stopped drinking. I stopped drinking between Christmas and New Year, and the doctors weren't open, and I actually had to sign myself into a crisis centre in Edinburgh. It's in Leith. And by the time I got to the doctors in the January, he said, you should never have stopped, because I was drinking so much. I should have probably tapered it off. But anyway, I did, and I'm still here, thank God. And I've never touched a drink since December 2017. My drinking was, like, I'm for the 90s. Well, I was born in the 70s, but I was partying in the 90s. I often think about the ladette culture. I would match anybody pint for pint, pills for pills. I was a raver. I travelled Europe when I was younger, raving. So that was very much the scene that I was involved in, which is fine when you've not got any responsibilities. But I went on to become a mum at 26, and nobody else I knew was a parent. Mm. And that's when I knew at 27 my drinking was problematic. I was drinking wine at home. I very much bought into the mummy needs a wine culture. I truly believed that. I was a single parent from when my daughter was very, very young. And then the weekend that she was going to her dad's, I was going out on the Friday night and I was limping home on the Sunday night. I was just the last one standing. I would take anything, drink anything. And sadly, very suddenly, when I was 33, my mum died. And I was really close to my mum. I mean, she thought I was a pain in the ass all the time, but she was a great mum, and she was a great support to me with my daughter, so I could work full time. And it was like the carpet had been pulled from under me. I could not get my feet back on the ground after that. I was left with a huge amount of caring responsibilities. And I was devastated. It was very, very sudden, my mum's death. And like many people of my generation, I'll be 50 next year, I was never taught how to deal with my emotions. I was never taught, like how do we deal with these really difficult emotions? And also, people don't particularly want to talk about them with you. It's very, very hard. So I just got stuck into the drink. I was 33 then, stopped drinking at 41. I was holding down, I used to use the term functioning alcoholic. I wasn't functioning. I was fucking drowning. I was like just scrambling, just trying to let everybody think that everything was okay, and really not doing okay at all. My self-talk was absolutely atrocious, horrific. I used to regularly affirm out loud, that I fucking hated myself. I was a fucking idiot. And then leave the shower and then try and go on to being a mum again. And I had a decent job in the corporate world. And by the time I stopped drinking in 2017, I was regularly drinking 3 bottles of wine a night,
Jesus, yeah.
I never once thought about being sober, though, because I've done this thing where I was like, if I don't drink wine, I'll be fine. If I only drink gin on a Friday, I'll be fine. If I don't drink with
all
that
those wee stories you tell yourself.
Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah.
And the trouble is with these stories that we tell ourselves is it chips away at our confidence and our belief in ourselves. And oh, fuck, I can't believe I've done it again. Like I've drunk again. And I was known at my work for going over and getting a bottle of wine and putting it in the work fridge so it would be cold for when I got home. My whole personality was around the fact that I was a party girl, that I was a drinker. But if you scratch the surface, you'd have seen it was just chaos. I mean, absolute chaos.
Yeah, but this is a bonkers thing to say, but it's almost socially acceptable chaos, isn't it? Like you're saying, I was known as. I bet at no point anyone at work said, Kirsty, are you okay? Like
nobody at work did. And a couple of friends who at the time I took massive umbrage with, so I was like, fucking dare you. One of my friends did try to have a word with me. She actually had a word with my daughter's dad, who I'm very close to my daughter's dad's family. And I just was like, how dare you? Do you know what I mean? However, they were still inviting me out, let's get on it. That's not their fault. That's completely on me. I was speaking to a client yesterday and she's not drinking. And somebody said to her, she's a young woman, much younger than I was when I stopped drinking. And somebody said to her, oh, for God's sake, just let your hair down. And like my client, like many people, knows exactly what letting their hair down means. It doesn't mean enjoying yourself. It means that your life unravels over a weekend quite often. So it is so socially acceptable. It is less socially acceptable not to drink still to this day. Not as bad as when I stopped, but still to this day, like occasionally I meet people that don't know who I am, like that don't know I'm SoberBuzz Kirsty or Sober Kirsty.
Yeah.
And if I mention, like maybe if I'm dating, if I go on the dating apps, and occasionally people will be like, not at all. You don't drink at all. Like, what do you do? Like as if people can't get their head round. And that I still go out. Like you follow me.
Yeah.
Stuff. But I went to my brother's wedding last year down south and nobody knew who I was. And they were like, but you have to have a drink. It's your brother's wedding. And I'm not going to sit and say to somebody at a wedding, 7 years ago, I almost lost everything.
Yeah.
I don't want to drink. Thanks. But people couldn't but you're Scottish. But it's your brother's wedding.
You get that, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, that's a bit of my story. And, it wasn't just like, and then I didn't drink again. It was blood, sweat and tears not to drink again, particularly for the first year. It was monumentally horrendous at times, but also extremely rewarding, like so rewarding, like, oh my God, I'm doing this. And then I started to notice that I felt really empowered. Now, I didn't go down the traditional route. I didn't do the fellowship, and I'm not here to diss the fellowship, but the fellowship wasn't for me. The fellowship's not for everybody. And this is a bit of a problem that we have because we think, and so do our medical professionals, think there's only one way to recover. Now, I actually don't think there is. And if somebody's just got we talk about alcohol use disorder. So say somebody's a binge drinker, they're not particularly going to feel like they're fitting in at the fellowship or any other sort of 12-step recovery. So then I started to be like, oh my God, this is amazing. I feel so empowered. And that is why further down the line, I started to speak much more openly about recovery, I suppose. There's a saying that says we recover out loud so people don't die in silence. Totally. And I stick to that thought a lot when I've overshared and feel vulnerable. I just know how many people I'm helping.
Yeah, and I think that there's something massive in that. I think a couple of things just to pick up on. One is that 90s culture was huge. That kind of like I went to uni in 99 when I was 17. And when I think back, I think everyone was a air quotes functional alcoholic because we're out 4 or 5 nights a week drinking all the time. And even now, like I'm quite happy to share, I stopped drinking 2 years ago, and I'm happy to chat a little bit about that. And honestly, some of that, I've messaged you and we've had a bit of chat about this before. Some of that was down to the likes of yourself who were happy to share. I definitely didn't fit into a kind of sort of alcoholic stereotype by any stretch, but I had one too many nights where I was that guy and just fucked up and was waking up and having to roll over and apologise to my wife and then think back and blacking out and trying to puzzle all that stuff. So there's no danger I would have fitted into something like a sort of 12 steps program, or whereas actually someone given permission to go, if this isn't for you, just stop, I think was hugely powerful for me. Another thing I think that you showed is that you've done things differently. Like so I think it was SoberBuzz that I first saw that you were doing, and it was, now I've not been to any of these, but seeing you hosting social events. There was like yoga and brunches and bringing people, like-minded people together, I think is huge. And what a contrast to that kind of sitting in a circle in a village hall, talking about 12 steps and saying your name and everything else. What made you go rogue and just do it your way?
I've always went fucking rogue. That's just who I am.
That was the problem in the first place.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's still a big part. I mean, I think it's probably why I drank and took drugs. Like, I like to rebel anyway. Do you know, I'm kind of like, if that's not going to fit me, I'm not going to do that. Like, don't tell me I have to do it one way. I'm going to look into doing it a different way. One of the biggest questions I had to ask myself in the very beginning, and I did ask myself a lot in my journal, was how can I care for myself today? And I hadn't cared for myself. I had told myself having a glass of wine was self-care, or 3 bottles of wine. But, so why did I go rogue? Because my life changed so dramatically, and it was everything that I thought that it wouldn't be. I started a private page. Believe it or not, I was like not showing my face or anything, like just like
a Instagram page.
Yeah. And then a few people that knew me were like, I think I'd like to do that. So I started another page, which was so on brand for me, called Sober as Fuck Edinburgh.
Love it.
And then that just kind of rolled into SoberBuzz, which became so SoberBuzz became something before lockdown. And SoberBuzz became, I think we would call it a microblog. Is that what they used to say? And I'd be talking about, how what my morning routine was, what I was doing instead of drinking, how I was coping. And then lockdown hit. And at that point, I had taken voluntary redundancy from my corporate job, and I was retraining as a transformational life coach. And I started doing online Zooms. And they were just a fucking scream. Like, sometimes people were like, this is murder, I'm struggling. But mostly we were just like having a bubble, like having a good laugh. And I started to see like the support how that was helping people. Before lockdown, I worked in the prison for a year. I'd done a year's working for a charity supporting offenders in recovery. So I got a huge amount of experience there. I still do volunteer in the criminal justice and the community, which again gives me a fantastic amount of experience that I can then go on to help other people. And then SoberBuzz was born out of lockdown. I hate to say this, right? Listen, this isn't a political podcast. I've got a lot to say about the lockdown itself. However, I thrived in that time. I was on my bike, cycling to the sea, jumping in the sea, and it gave me
a lot of people did, yeah.
It gave me a space to be. Well, you couldn't go out and get pissed. Do you know what I mean? Although they said that off licenses were essential shops, which I was on the radio about that all the time. I was furious about that. And then I started to see how I was helping people within SoberBuzz.
Mm-hmm.
When I was doing my training, people were saying, you have to do some with your sobriety. And I was like, oh, no, that's just like a little thing that I do on the side. Became a transformational life coach, started doing what you would call regular life coaching, which was great. And then people were contacting me and saying, I'd like to stop drinking, or I'd like to, experience being sober curious. And that's how my business, it's mostly sobriety stuff that I do, or I work with people that are sober and need a little bit more support elsewhere. And I think people come to me, or I think people follow my pages because I'm just a normal lassie for Edinburgh and I'm just honest with everything that I do. And I still love to go clubbing, even though I'm really old. I love techno. I haven't stopped. There's not been a huge, massive change, other than I do a lot more healthy things, but I still socialise. I still enjoy it.
There's power in that, though, I think. Mm-hmm. There's power in seeing somebody doing the things they do. Because I've even had it. I think I can pretty much say that, my social life hasn't changed since stopping drinking. I still do the same things. I live out in the middle of nowhere, so it's quite handy to have the car to be able to get back anyway. But social life hasn't changed much. The thing that has changed are the social events with certain groups of pals. So when I go, my school pals, for example, who I love to bits and I'm still close with, but their social life and the way they socialise is entirely pub-based. And it's not sit and have 2 or 3 beers. It's let's pretend we're 18 and get right. And that's the only thing that I don't step back into. So I think since I stopped drinking 2 years ago, I opted out of a stag do and maybe a couple of weekends away when the sole focus would be on that. Do you know what I mean? But on the whole, I think having someone like yourself that is showing it with honesty, going out doing good stuff, gives people permission to do it and realise that they don't need to just sit at home and rot away on their own.
What you've just shared there is really important for MD listening, because we have to get to a point where we're comfortable prioritising ourselves. Now, whether that's somebody that's looking to prioritise living alcohol-free or somebody that's looking to prioritise early nights, it doesn't fucking matter. But people have a big problem with that. I don't want to let people down. I don't want people to think that I'm boring.
Yeah.
A real shift in my work and with myself was, making me the priority. If I'm not the priority, everything else goes to shit. My role as a mother, my role as a caregiver, my role as, so that's massive that you're able to do that. I'm just going to skip the stag weekend. My oldest friends, they'll never listen to this because they didn't give a damn about what I do. They still live a wild one, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. I meet for food and then I'm like, see ya, because I'm not sitting around that, because it's just really, really boring. And if they were to say, do you want to go away for the weekend? I would say no. Because what fun am I going to get out of that?
It's hard though, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's hard to do that. Definitely.
In the beginning, it's really hard because you're so hyper-focused. Most people who work with me or speak to me, people chat to me all the time, right? They've thought for a long time, my drinking's not great. Whether it's like the odd night, they're waking up next morning next to their partner, like, what did I say, what did I do? Or they're people that are promising they're not drinking during the week and they drink on a Wednesday. So they're very hyper aware of what do other people think this about my drinking. If I don't go to that, are they going to think I'm worse than I actually was? Are they going to be talking about me because we're just on high alert, So in the beginning, it can be very difficult to put yourself first. And I'd like to think I'm an honest person, Scott, but you can have a little white lie occasionally. I just can't come out. There's no point. I'm on medication for whatever. I'm not going to get a bit of space between you and that last drink, because in the beginning, everything feels very, very scary when you stop drinking.
Yeah, totally. And I found certainly for the first maybe 6 months or something, I always had that ready excuse of I'm driving, we need to get home, which was really useful. But then after a while, I actually remember really vividly the first party I went to, where I was just like, I don't drink. And it was like, what do you mean you don't drink? And then, but do you know what totally shocked me, right? And I'm saying, so some of the older pals are like, what has shocked me right throughout this is how sound people are. 9 times out of 10, people are like, oh, tell me about that. And the ones that do have an issue with it are the ones you're like, you need to be speaking to someone. You can almost guarantee.
So we call that holding a mirror up, it's like...
Oh, right, okay, it's got a name.
There's people in my family like that, there's people in my family who I love, of course, who never mention my work, never mention the TV appearances, all the stuff that I do, because it's just uncomfortable for them, because then it means that we've got to take a good long hard look at ourselves. And I think eventually, I think a lot of people are very curious, and what I find with my own friends and then speaking to other people is it gives other people permission as well to be like, oh, actually, Scott didn't drink the night. I think I'll do that next week. I think I'll just take the car. And it's like a little ripple effect that happens, which I love.
So I've got a wee gang of people that, not like an actual gang of sober people. That sounds sad, doesn't it? But I've got
that's me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're the leader of the gang, Kirsty.
A cult. It's a cult. It's my cult. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it. But yeah, I've got a few really good pals who I won't name on this because it's not my decision to, who got in touch when I first publicly shared, I've done 6 months without drinking or whatever, who have since stopped drinking. And you see just the support that pings back and forward. And some of them are in pretty bad states, just... That stuff is so powerful, that sort of sense of community, which is huge. And I think that's what you've done with sort of SoberBuzz. You mentioned your coaching stuff. So is that SkyRose coaching? Is that right? Is that what it's called? Yeah. How do you find that complements SoberBuzz, or are they two total separate entities?
They're kind of separate. So SkyRose coaching, it's important. I'll tell you why it's called that, because I talk to people, if people want to stop drinking, I say, why do you want to do it? Why is it so important to you? And just drill down on that. So Sky's my daughter and Rose is my niece. Okay. And once I got sober and stayed sober, I was able to be a much more present, and it just reminds me of why I do everything that I do, because I adore those girls. My daughter's an adult now, and she's really proud of what I've done. I take her to techno raves and all the rest of it, so it means the world to me that I've named my business after that. I just try and keep them both kind of separate. However, people come to my events and then they'll say, can I work with you? And I'll say, well, yes, but it's my other business.
It's free marketing.
Well, yeah.
Oh, I love that. Also, as an aside, my daughter's middle name's Sky and Rose as well. So
amazing. Beautiful name.
I love it. Mm-hmm. One of the things I've seen you speak about before is really banging the drum for the need for more alcohol-free spaces. Yeah. To get away from that kind of cultural pressure to drink, particularly in some of those social settings where it's just assumed you will, work events and things like that. What do you reckon is the biggest sort of injustice you feel that sober and sober curious community face? What's the hardest thing?
So we talk about inclusion a lot, don't we? Like in other aspects of our life, and I don't think it's all that inclusive at the moment. If I'm going out for my dinner, say if I'm going out for a nice meal, I'm not going somewhere that's going to offer me one shitty alcohol-free beer and nothing else. I want to be able to walk in somewhere and have an array of options. Not everybody drinks alcohol-free drinks either, so we don't just want a Pepsi out the tap. Maybe a kombucha in there, whatever. We want to feel that our money's, they want our money. We still spend money. I've got a massive problem that there's nowhere open over late at night that's alcohol-free. You might follow somebody Sober But Not Boring, Douglas, and he's a great, he's part of the LGBTQ plus community, and I've spoke to him a lot. For a lot of young LGBTQ plus people, the safe space is bars, sadly. They feel safe to come out in that area, and there's a real need for people in that community to have a safe space that's not got alcohol in it either. I'm very privileged. I'm a white woman, a white middle-aged woman. I don't have to worry about certain things that other parts of our society or community have to worry about. I would love there to be a space where they're playing music and we can chill out and we can have a blether and we can have some drinks. But the trouble is, these spaces make their money through selling alcohol. In Aberdeen, there's about to be a bar open called Bar Soba, and I think it's SOBA. So anybody that's listening to this up there, check that out. More power to her. I hope it works out for her. I heard recently that, not my kind of music, but God, the girl that sings Pink Pony Club, she was at Ingliston, and she has they had a whole alcohol-free bar there. And it wasn't in the same bar, which is fucking amazing. So you're not like, oh, maybe I'll have a beer. No, you're in the alcohol-free one. And there was loads of different mocktails, loads of different beers, loads of... I've just said I take Sky festivals. I've been to so many festivals and I've been offered a fucking warm IPA. I never liked IPA in the first place. I don't want it now. So
it's better than a Beck's Blue.
Oh yeah,
that's the other one that kills me.
A warm Beck's Blue with the dust getting knocked off it, because
totally.
I want to see more inclusive spaces for people who are alcohol free. A lot of people who don't drink won't go into what they call wet spaces. There's a great night. There's a great night in Glasgow, which I love to give a plug to, called Good Clean Fun. And Amy runs that night, and it's in the Multicultural Centre in Glasgow, and it's completely alcohol-free, and they sell out. They have been doing amazing, and it's decent music. She has some amazing DJs playing there, and they don't sell any alcohol, which means that people from certain ethnic backgrounds will come in and go to that space. Do you know that it means people who are doing AA who won't get into wet spaces? So we need more of that. But I'm not the woman for that. People are like, why don't you do it? I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not an events person, but I would like to see more of that. I would also like to see less drink-related activities at work. I hear that a lot. People feel a lot of pressure to drink at work, so they just don't go to them. I would just like for people like me and you, of course, to be seen as important on a night out as the person that's getting pissed.
Yeah, and it's hard, isn't it? Because there's not a one size fits all. I love like an alcohol-free beer or whatever, and it's a game changer for me to be able to sit, even if it's a crap beer, but to be able to get a pint and sit in the pub. It's brilliant, because I love going to the pub and doing all that kind of stuff. So, whereas it must be really difficult if you're like, I don't want to go anywhere near that stuff. That's a different challenge. One of the things that I saw you speak about ages ago was about actually taking practical steps and doing things like phoning up ahead before you. And I think the more people that do that, the more that message is getting through. Hang on a minute. It makes financial sense to have more drinks in as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, so somebody like, well, I was going to say somebody like just me, that's what I mean. When I phone up and they say, oh, sorry, that's all we've got. And I say, well, listen, I'm going to cancel. I'm not going to make my booking because I live in a sober bubble, Scott. A lot of my friends are alcohol-free. So I'm quite happy to challenge that. Not being rude to the person on the phone, but just saying maybe next time, maybe you can speak about getting some more alcohol-free options in. I've been to restaurants before and, they've got a great menu and then all of a sudden they've got nothing on that menu. That's not good enough. I've booked that, for that reason. If I go to somebody's house, particularly I didn't drink alcohol-free till I was a year sober, but I would take way more than I needed just in case I finished my alcohol-free and I thought, oh, fuck it, I'll just have a beer. There's things we can do to support ourselves. We can't expect drinkers to cater for us. So people will say to me, oh, like, I don't drink anymore and my friends don't invite me out. And I'm like, well, that's pretty shitty. However, you have to make that step and say, listen, do you want to go for brunch next Sunday? Because drinkers don't know what to do with non-drinkers. They absolutely do not. They're like, oh God, can we invite her out? Can we do it? Can we do with her? So if you're newly sober or you're somebody that's sober, you have to start taking those first steps because they just don't know what we want to do. There's so many great things now, like Flight Club, the darts club. I've never been, but I want to go.
Right.
Like pool tables, like invite your sober friends out to do an activity, not to sit and watch you get pissed as we nurse a Beck's Blue and a packet of bacon fries. You know, there has to be something in it for us, and sit and watch people drink. That's not the one.
Yeah. Since you started, have you seen a cultural shift? And again, it's maybe because I'm in more of a bubble. Well, I don't think I'm in a sort of sober bubble, certainly not to the extent that you are, but have you seen a change, or have you had to adapt what you do as there's like new cultural norms, so the sober curious movement, or, you know, it just been more socially acceptable? Yeah. How have you
That's a
adapted
great
to that?
question, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because there was something I wanted to talk about. So we talk about, it's a very American term, but it's being used here, and it's something I'm happy to adopt from America. Alcohol use disorder. So underneath that umbrella, you'd have what, you know, somebody like my father would class as an alcoholic, which is somebody sitting in a street, you know, shop doorway, drinking, you know, their cheap cider. But under that umbrella of alcohol use disorder, we've got our binge drinkers. We've got the people who know that every time they have a drink, they feel rotten for 3 days. They've got people, you know, anything can be under there. So one, that allows people to not go, oh, I'm not that bad. You know, it's not about not being that bad. If you know it's got any negative impact on you and you're underneath that umbrella, great, let's go and make a change. I think the rise of social media has made our young people really, really aware of what they look like. Like, my daughter's worst idea of hell is somebody recording her when she's drunk and posting it somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, thank God they didn't have that phones when I was younger. So I think there's a real rise in the wellness industry, you know, looking a certain way, behaving a certain way, I suppose. So in the last 2 years, I've worked with so many more young people, like young men and young women in their 20s. And isn't that exciting that they're like, fuck this, I don't want to do that anymore. So
Yeah.
a huge shift in that. And in the beginning, I was working with people who I would say were, you know, really, really struggling to, you know, to the point where, like, you know, they're like, what's my next step? You know, is it rehab? Whereas now I'm working with people that are like, I just don't like how it makes me feel. I just don't want to do it anymore. I want to do something.
Almost looking for permission and support to just step out of those social norms and what they're doing.
Yeah, totally. And so it's about getting curious. I like curiosity. I think curiosity is a great thing. And every part of your life, you should be curious about, could things be done differently. But to say you're sober curious is it's just a really lovely way of you saying, I'm looking at doing things maybe a bit differently, things that align with the person that I know I am, or that I'm becoming. And I think, you know, Sober Girl Society, Millie's page, I mean, she's a younger woman than I am. I think that she does great things, and it's all pink and sparkly and lovely, and I think that's great. My big concern is, I don't think there's much for young men out there.
Yeah.
In fact, you know, that's a whole other topic, isn't it? But I think for women, that we bond with our vulnerabilities, and we're able to. So when people come on my walks and meetups, nobody sits and goes, I'm Kirsty and I've not drank for 8 years. But okay, you know, eventually it comes out, oh yeah, I didn't, you know, and I can hear everybody sharing, oh, I was like that. Oh my God, me too. Can't believe it. You know, and that really helps them. I run weekend clubs that we talk, and it's just great, but we're bonding and having a laugh about it, right? Men don't often feel that safety, you know, that fear of being vulnerable and saying, this is what's going on for me. And there's, as we know, there's an epidemic of, you know, self-harm within young men, and
Totally.
suicide statistics. And I've not even touched on cocaine. Like, I mean, I could probably get coke now. Do you know what I mean? And it's everywhere. So, you know, the rise of young men using cocaine, the rise of young men drinking more cocaine use, and then I've worked with men before, and they've stopped drinking, and they've ventured back out, and people have used homophobic slurs against them because they don't drink. You know, yeah.
Oh, that's common, really commonplace. As is guys like racking up a couple of lines of coke to sober them up so they can drink more to stay out longer. And, you know, it's...
Oh, I was like that, but then I was a laddie. I'd be like, that's why I took so much coke at the end, because it was like, it would allow me to try and remember the night and keep drinking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about there not being the same thing for men. I hadn't quite thought about that, but there's quite a few sort of individuals doing good stuff, and there's a couple of podcasts. But yeah, there's not the same sense of community, because I think a lot of guys that maybe get to the point where they feel they need to stop drinking, they were quite like happy in that kind of masculine environment. So there isn't an alternative, you know. So finding new activities can be really difficult to do. Like I say, like my pals from school, love them to bits, still meet up with them individually, still will meet up with them, but it's difficult because it's just a different situation, you know.
SoberBuzz isn't for women only, but we don't have many men coming along. And I work with men as well, but I would like to plug a page that I would encourage MD to look at, and it's Max Colby. That's run by a fucking absolute legend of a human called Paul, and he is sober, and his meetups aren't about being sober. However, people tend to gravitate towards him, and there's a lot of outdoor stuff, and it's pretty extreme, some of the stuff. And I send a lot of guys there, and I watch the videos. But go and check him out if you don't follow Paul.
Yeah, I'll have a look.
And I'll tell you what, Paul would be a great guy to speak to on here. He's wonderful. He's a beautiful speaker. So please tell him that I sent you his way.
I'll do that.
And he notices that, this need for masculine spaces. Women go to Max Colby as well, but I would say it's more men than women. And I love what he's doing. He's a fireman as well, so he's a very manly man. I really love what he's doing. I think he's making such great waves with the stuff that he does. He came to one of my SoberBuzz events recently and had a table and spoke to lots of people. But I have guys talk to me and they'll say, I've been drinking alcohol free at home. I'm really enjoying it. And then I go out and I just get absolutely slated. And I find that really difficult. I don't know how to deal with that. They feel very pressurized, and then that makes them feel even more shit because they're like, I should be able to say no to this. And it's very sad. When I worked in the jails, I worked mostly with men, and the stories that you hear are just absolutely devastating. And then you have this chat about, well, just man up, and it's just so dangerous. Do you know what I mean?
That self-loathing spiral as well, when you feel like you failed, is huge. And I think you used the word empowering right at the very start of the conversation. I think there is something massively empowering. And I don't know whether it's once I've got to a certain age or whatever, but when you just don't give a shit about what other people think and you're happy to say, yeah, don't drink. And it does feel empowering. Do you know what I mean? And it's, there's something really magical about that.
Have you noticed since, saying I don't drink and that empowering feeling, do you notice that you're confident in other areas of your life now?
Yeah, massively. And I don't know, it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing. I don't know which comes first, but the knock-on effect has to be positive. Definitely.
It is, because you're keeping a promise to yourself, right? And you're able to say, no, I don't want to do that, about something that probably felt quite massive. It then allows us to think, right, okay, it's okay for me to have my needs met. It's okay for me to do what I want to do. It's okay to speak with my chest and say, that's not for me. And I get messages of clients that I've worked with, they'll message me and say, I'm a year sober or I'm 2 years sober. And they'll be like, and my confidence has skyrocketed because I have such trust in myself now, because when we drink, whether it's just how you did or I did, our self-trust goes out the window because I can't believe I've done it again. And it, stopping drinking doesn't solve all your problems. Problems still happen. However, it allows you to see that, you have agency over what you do and the confidence. People always say, you're so confident. But, before I was just loud, whereas now as I speak and I without a shake in my voice, because I truly believe in myself. I trust myself, and that's what's going alcohol. That's what going alcohol free has done for me. It's allowed me to have that self trust, which is absolutely priceless.
Yeah, it's huge. It definitely is. A random sort of question to finish. If you could wave a magic wand, right, and instantly achieve one major social or political shift to alcohol use and mental health support, what would it be?
Just give us more money.
More money to put on all the things we've been speaking about, activities,
there's no money. There's no money. Like you've asked about SoberBuzz, like being a community interest company. If you don't mind, I'm going to give you a bit of a spiel on this.
Please do. Yeah, I'd love to.
So we have tried for funding. It's very difficult to get funding. I'm sharing this next bit, not to be like, oh, look at me, but I often get called in to speak on the BBC, STV. Like I seem to be the go-to person for a lot of stuff. I know what I'm talking about. Years and years ago, there was a government advert for us all to wear seatbelts, because remember, people didn't wear their seatbelts, and then all of a sudden it was totally uncool not to wear one because you might headbutt your pal and kill them. I'd love to see adverts like, hey, listen, why not have a Sober Curious weekend this weekend? Why not have a Guinness Zero or a Heineken Zero? I'm not asking everybody to be sober. I know that's not possible, and that's not what everybody wants. There's a lot of money goes into end of care. I do I volunteer for a charity called Cardraw in Alba, and what I see there is just absolutely heartbreaking. Alcohol-related brain damage, cirrhosis of the liver. Of course, we need to support these people. I want to see money right back there at the beginning, so people aren't thinking all they do with their time off is get pissed. Let's get curious about different things we can do. The weather in Scotland's fucking atrocious. Why is there not more indoor places for people to hang out that doesn't have alcohol? Rather than trying to close the gate after the horse is bolted, let's look about how we can start way before then. And it's education. It's having people like me, not just me, but it's having people like me, younger people, talking to groups of people and saying, listen, since I stopped drinking, all these great things happened, and you can maybe do these things this weekend. Or rather than, when we stopped fucking lockdown, they said, go out and have a drink. Go have a drink. This whole country's about go and have you know, a drink. When Sky turned 18, she's much older than that now. She's a grown-ass adult. But when my daughter turned 18, I was sober. I was so acutely aware of everybody saying, oh, you can go to the pub. And I remember thinking, that's the highlight of becoming an adult, is that you can go to the pub. We need to squarely change. We need to just start pushing into a different direction with that. And it has to start well before people have got liver cirrhosis, well before people have got alcohol-related brain damage, well before people have lost their job, their wife, their husbands, whatever. We need to start saying, it's okay not to drink this weekend.
Definitely. Get that early message. Yeah. Even that, the end stage isn't always easy though. I mean, I'm going back a few years. I lost an immediate family member to alcohol. And I remember going down to the GP at it was the 24-hour GP, 1 a.m. And the message was, well, if they don't want to stop drinking, we can't help them. And we were literally turned around and I remember thinking, I don't know where to go. I was only in my early mid-20s. And even at that point, you're thinking, what is wrong? Like, why can't we get support? You know, and that was at a critical end of life stage. You know?
I'm so saddened to hear that. However, I know of someone that I'm quite close to who last year was having a real psychotic episode, was drinking far too much. A family member got her in the car. I mean, it was terrifying, a horrible experience. Got her in the car, took her to the hospital here, and they said, well, we can't see her till she sobers up. And we were like, we think she's going to kill herself. We think, you know, then she sobered up. She didn't want to go and see MD because she was too embarrassed. I've had people contact me to say that they've spoke to therapists and counsellors who've said, oh, it doesn't sound that bad, because I don't think unless you've had, I think we need more lived experience people in these positions, so they're not going to say it doesn't sound that bad, or maybe just drink less, or, you know, if somebody's saying to you, I'm fucking crying out for help, you know, we need to be there and help them immediately. And there's nothing. You're absolutely right. People go to doctors and they'll say, I'm really worried about my drinking. How much strength does it take to go to your GP to say that? And your GP goes, here you go, try AA. Now, once again, AA is great for somebody. For other people, they go way back and they think, I can't do that. What if somebody knows me there? And they drink more and more and more. We need to say, you can try AA, or you could try SoberBuzz, or you could try get in touch with Sober Girl Society, or you could try Max Colby, or you could try so people aren't just left with one option. There can't be one way.
Because there's stigma comes with that. I agree. I think AA has its place, whatever, but there is stigma for some people when it comes to these things, and they're like, I can't be someone that goes to AA, or I can't be someone who is classed as an alcoholic. And I think that those barriers need to be broken down as well, don't they?
Yeah. And language, right? So let's be really careful with the language that we're using. So I can't drink. Well, anybody can. I could go and buy alcohol now. It's 20 to 12. I've decided not to drink. I don't want to drink. My life's better without drink. If somebody's listening to this and they're like, oh God, yeah, I definitely want to make a change with my alcohol, start thinking about how you speak to yourself around it, you know, rather than like, I'm a fucking idiot on alcohol. Actually, my life feels so much better when I've not had a drink. You know, just these little things are really, really, really helpful. Like, they sound so little, but the way we talk to ourselves is the way that we motivate ourselves, you know. So I would love to see more of that. I would love to see more people, you know, doing something different at the weekend, you know, whether it is joining a group and jumping in a waterfall, or going for a walk, or there are great people out there doing great things. I'm not the only person, you know, I'm not the only person. There's people down south doing it as well. And if anybody listens to this and they're like, oh, I'm not in Scotland, you know, wherever they are in the world, you and I have had this conversation before, I will find people that can support you, or that you can hang out with. And sober people aren't boring. We're really good fun. We find different ways to have fun, and we're just loving life.
I love that. And just to finish on a kind of another optimistic thing, is I think when you speak to kids, like my daughters are in their teens and just pre-teens, they think that the way that we carried on back in the day is ridiculous. You know, like my oldest daughter's 14. At 14 at her age, I was in the pub. Do you know what I mean? Like that was because that was the be all and end all. That was, you'd made it if you got served in the pub. I don't see that same kind of drive to just drinking all the time. So hopefully those messages are starting to get through. You know?
For me as a parent, and listen, thoughts and prayers for you with those young girls, but for me as a parent, it has allowed me something that would never have happened if I was drinking. My daughter talks to me openly about what she gets up to. Probably not everything, but she's a raver. She does all the things and we have very open conversations. I feel very comfortable talking to her about them. I feel that I'm a safe space for her. I couldn't say I'm worried about you, because she would turn around and be like, well, what, you've just sat and drunk 3 bottles last night. How dare you be worried? You know, so I think that for me is probably one of the biggest rewards for me, is how close my daughter and I am. And, and how proud she is of me and how proud I am of her and how she's
Beautiful.
in her life. Yeah.
Amazing. Kirsty, if people want to get in touch with you to find out more about SkyRose coaching, SoberBuzz, what's the best way to do it?
Instagram, if you've got an Instagram account. If not, it's super easy, skyrosecoaching@gmail.com. I've got like digital resources. I could chuck people whatever they wanted. I could send them whatever way they wanted, and I'm always really keen to hear from people. So
amazing. And I'll stick links to those things in the show notes in here. And just on a personal level, like, huge thanks for what you do. It really has given people permission to change lives in the way that they want to, and it's massively appreciated. So thanks so much. And let's grab that in-person coffee.
Definitely.
Definitely. Nice one, Kirsty. Thank you so much.